Keltie today. And thank you so much for doing this and being open and honest to share your story with us and take us on your journey over your last 5 years since your concussion. So would you start with kind of introducing who you are, what you like to do, kind of where you're from, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. So my name is Keltie Stout. I'm 37 years old. I grew up in rural BC in a very small community. I kind of, after school, went and did university in Lethbridge and moved to Calgary and did the city thing and moved back to Cranbrook. And I'm very much not a city girl. So I love, I have passion for animals. I absolutely love animals. I'm in love with nature. I would consider myself a very spiritual person. And I have a love for human beings, for people, for seeing the good in the world. And I just a very energetic, kind, give you the shirt off my back kind of person.
Awesome.
And I really enjoy, being physically fit, and spending time with my family is really big for me, and being a part of a community. And
take us back to the beginning of your journey when you actually got your concussion. And so you told me that was 5 years ago.
Yeah, so on March 12th, 2013, I decided I used to be a very avid snowboarder, and I was very passionate about it. I love snowboarding. I went every weekend, and I decided I was going to go snowboarding. It was a Saturday, and started out like every normal day. My helmet was not at my house. It was at my aunt's house. And I remember thinking that morning, I should go get my helmet. And then I thought, oh, it's no big deal. I never fall. And so I proceeded to go. I went snowboarding without my helmet. It was the last run of the day, and I was rushing to catch up with my friends because I was on the backside of the mountain that I didn't really know very well. And I caught a back edge. I was going about 65, maybe 70 kilometers an hour, and caught a back edge, and I fell right back on my head, caught everything. I kind of remember, but it's almost like a dream. Mm-hmm. I got knocked out. So I was unconscious from anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes, according to my friends. And I came to, and things were a little bit weird, but I wanted to put on a good front, and I was with a bunch of guys, and I'm like, oh no, I'm fine. And so I was kind of playing it off, and I was in very much like a dream world. And I remember getting down the mountain, but it was very difficult. And I remember driving to the hotel because I was down in actually Whitefish, Montana. And everyone wanted to have a beer. So I had a beer with them, which was like the normal thing to do, even though I felt off. I didn't know what it was. And I wasn't a big drinker. So I had a beer, but I couldn't stay awake. So I think about 8 o'clock, 7 o'clock, I was like, I can't stay awake. I've got to go to bed. And I went to sleep and slept. And the next morning I woke up and I was feeling really ill and just very nauseous, and something wasn't quite right. But because I wasn't a big drinker, I thought, oh, I must be hungover from having a beer. So I drove home, and it was a very hard drive, and I stopped at my mom's house, and I remember her saying, are you okay? There's something is not right with you. And I said, so Monday I went into work, and I actually ended up going home sick because I thought, oh my gosh, like I'm getting old. I'm still hungover from having one beer. And I just remember I went home and slept, and like something wasn't quite right. I went into work on Tuesday. I think I maybe ended up doing 3/4 of the day, but still things, just weren't quite right. And then on the Wednesday, I had a bit of a nervous breakdown at work. So I was the executive assistant to the director of human resources and instruction for our local school district. And we were learning a new program, and like the words were jumping off the screen, and I couldn't see things properly. And I remember at one point, 2 people came into my office and were talking to me at the same time. And I kind of started crying and they were like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I'm not sure, but can you give me a minute? And things just weren't right. And I call it my nervous breakdown. I had a bit of a nervous breakdown. And my mom said, you need to go to the hospital. And she knew about, me falling. And so I went into the hospital and they said, yeah, absolutely. You have a really bad concussion.
Okay.
Well, I never thought about it, but at the time it was about my 8th concussion. So yeah, they said, you've got to go into blackout. I do, nothing for 2 weeks. And so I did. I went into complete blackout. Just remember, I don't remember a lot about that time, but I remember just feeling really nauseous and not quite right and really flighty and, not really kind of almost in a dream world.
Yeah.
And then I tried to go back to work and, I couldn't. I had to take more time off. And then I was kind of getting a little bit better. And I had a scheduled a conference, HR conference in Las Vegas. And so my doctor approved me to go and I went. And it was probably the worst mistake of my life. When I got back from Las Vegas, it almost, put me further behind. And I wasn't able to return to work. So I had some time off, and so I actually took 3 months off. I took the whole summer off and tried to go back to work in September, and I went back in and same thing. I couldn't concentrate, I couldn't see, I couldn't read very well, I couldn't listen to more than one person talking to me at the same time, all that. So I ended up actually going on long-term disability. Since then, lost my job. I ended up, I couldn't grocery shop for myself.
Yeah.
I would forget to eat. So my mom was taking care of me for a little while, but it just wasn't working out. So I actually ended up having to leave my house and I had to move back in with my mom. And she had to take care of me for quite a while and make sure that I ate and I was getting good food and that I was, she had to do grocery shopping for me and I couldn't go out to restaurants and I couldn't go to crowds. I couldn't talk to more than one person at a time. Family events were hard. And so that's kind of the beginning of my PCS story.
So
maybe 2 years later that I was sent to a brain rehabilitation center.
Okay, so
where I learned.
Where did you?
I went to Calgary. Okay. It helped me quite a bit in realizing that sort of if this is where I used to live, now this is where I need to live. And I can try to expand my bubble little bits at a time, but if I go outside of that bubble, then my symptoms are coming back. So I had to really find out. And at first, 2 years after the fact, that bubble was 5 hours a day. I was sleeping the rest of the day, 20 or 19 hours a day I would sleep. And I only had enough energy to be awake for 5 hours a day. And that's kind of what my bubble looked like. Now, since then, I've been able to expand my bubble, but I still need to live within my bubble. And when I don't, symptoms come back full force. And I realize, I did too much,
Right. Right. And so today, like with the where you are now, what are the symptoms so when you say if you push yourself too far, because your symptoms come back in, what symptoms are you still dealing with today?
Well, I do get, one of the things that I really miss is I used to be a very avid hiker. And when I exercise, I get really, really bad headaches. Even driving down a really bumpy gravel road where my head, bounces a little bit, I get really, really bad headaches. If I do too much in the day, the next day when I wake up, I feel hungover. I feel like I drank, 12 beers the night before. And I'm very groggy. Just have a really difficult time concentrating and remembering. If I've done too much, my memory just shrinks right up and I can't even remember what I did yesterday, let alone what I had planned for today. There's still things that maybe are not triggers, but I just have never been able to get out of. For example, if I'm watching TV, you can't talk to me. I can't listen to somebody and the TV at the same time. So even though my husband's lived with me for 4 years, he still doesn't understand why I have to pause the TV when he talks to me. So even if I'm concentrating on, saying, cutting strawberries or making food, and somebody talks to me, I can't really do that, and I get frustrated. And though it's been 5 years and I can go to a restaurant, afterwards I can't do anything else. If I'm going to a restaurant, I have to come home, I have to lay down in the dark and have what I call a brain break. Because it's so overstimulating. I still don't go grocery shopping. Grocery shopping is one of the harder things for me to do. Decision making is really difficult for me since the accident. And you think, like, what do you want, black or white? And it's like, on the spot decision making is almost impossible. And yet on the other spectrum, I make really bad decisions of like, oh, I can take this on. Sure, let's get 2 goats. And then it's like, oh, this was not a good idea. Who let me ever do this? So I think I can take on the world still, and I forget that I'm limited in my abilities and what I'm capable of doing in concentrating. And, certain lights have a worse effect on me than other lights. If I go into a grocery store, not only am I overstimulated by the colors and the people and the noise, the lights alone will give me a headache. So if I go into a grocery store or a doctor's office, 10 minutes and I have a headache from, the different lighting. I find that I feel very comfortable in hats. It's weird. I almost feel like there's this banding around my head all the time. And when I'm not wearing a hat, it feels really uncomfortable.
You still deal with dizziness, with, do the words on your page kind of dance a little bit?
Yeah, so I used to be a very avid reader, and I think maybe I've gotten through 2 books in the last 5 years. I find it very difficult to read. I get headaches. If I have now a clear purple sheet that I put on a white piece of paper, that does help me a little bit better. I used to be a big I used to write like 8 poems a day, and I don't think I've even written 1 poem since I've hit my head. And as a matter of fact, I find my fight or flight has kicked in. So before, if somebody would come up and scare me, it'd be like, oh, don't do that. But now if someone were to come up and scare me, my body reacts like I am in danger and I'm going to die. And my fight or flight kicks in, and then I vibrate for the next 3 or 4 days.
What are some, so with the struggles that you still have, and thank you for sharing, what are some strategies you've taught yourself to help you cope with those things?
Right. So I've spoken already about my brain breaks.
Yeah.
And so even sometimes if I'm with my friends or out kind of, at a friend's house or doing something, there's times where I say, is there a bedroom I can just go lay down in for 10 minutes? And those are actually really important throughout the day to get a bit of a break. And so that's one thing that if I'm getting overwhelmed, if I'm getting a headache, rather than pushing myself and making everything worse, I'll take a brain break. I haven't figured out a strategy for the frustration yet. So I think for the frustration and being around people is basically I try to let people know that I'm around, that this is kind of what happens. And if I snap at you, I don't mean to, I just need a bit of space. Or if I'm in the middle of something, can you just wait till I'm done doing that before having a conversation with me? Just trying to explain to people where I'm at. I really have to limit my activities in order to not get to that point where it's so bad that I kind of, and I mean, there's been times where I've done so much that I've had to sleep for 4 days in order to recuperate. Getting enough sleep is really, really big. I need, at minimum 10 hours of sleep at night since my brain injury. 12 hours is actually better. I feel better with 12 hours of sleep. Sometimes taking naps in the day. I'm not a big napper. I don't like napping, but every once in a while I have to just sleep for an hour, and that will kind of help to regenerate me. And then there's just things like I do my best to get my omegas and to get my brain food, to not eat, as too much unhealthy food, try to get those whole, organic as much as I can. And I think that keeping my stomach balanced and eating properly does help the brain a little bit. But I think one of the most important things is for people around me to know what triggers me and how I'm going to react, so that they can then sort of help me help them.
Over the course of your whole journey, really, who has your team been? So whether it's your support team, but also like a therapy team, kind of along the way, and then who do you have in your corner now? Who do you go to for things now?
Right. Okay. So one of the first people, like I said, the doctors didn't really give me a lot of information, and I don't feel like they were a part or are a part of my support system. The first person I ever went to, she did psychosomatic healing. And so it's hard to explain it, but it's when they use, she'd attach stuff to my brain and to parts of my body and send electrodes kind of through my body. While I was going through the treatment, I felt like I did a lot better, but it was very expensive and it was in Calgary. And so I could only go for so long. Once I stopped, I felt like it, everything, I kind of went back to step one. So it helped while I was doing it.
Okay.
She was a wonderful support. Then there was the Brain Rehabilitation Center in Calgary, who really helped me out a lot to know that I'm not going crazy. This is part of PCS. Unfortunately, it's just, because there's times where I'm like, am I losing it? Am I like, is this me? Am I going crazy? Am I mentally ill? And they, were very reassuring that this is what people go through with PCS, and really helped me to find my limit and then live within it. Right. And so that was sort of the first stages. There was a couple of counselors that I went to see that were a big part of it, because, it was someone to talk to and for them to help me out to say, yes, this is all, PCS. And I actually found the most amazing chiropractor.
Okay.
And so I was seeing him regularly for about a year, and I noticed some really amazing changes in me. Now, it's been since, I believe, May since I've seen him, because I just had a busy summer and I couldn't make it in. And I've noticed that a lot of his work I've kind of stepped back a little bit from where I was with him working. So I'm going to start going again next week. And awesome. I highly recommend people finding, whether it's a chiropractor or a physiotherapist or, acupuncture, whatever it is that's going to help. Find that thing that's going to help you and consistently go to it, because it really does make a difference. And then right now, I'm fortunate enough that in the next community over, there's a brain rehabilitation support group. And so that's actually been probably it's in Fernie. The group itself has been probably the most beneficial thing for me, because I talk to other people who are going through what I go through. They understand me. When someone asks to dim the lights during the meeting, we all go, yes, please. It's just a really beautiful group of people that have been through similar situations, and I really relate to them, and we support each other a lot. And that's been one of the most beneficial supports that I've had. I have some very good friends and family members. Unfortunately, through this process, I've actually lost some relationships with my family members, which I might get emotional about that, but it's been really difficult because they just don't understand. But my mom has been my biggest support system for me. She's been wonderful to this day. She's still, I'm married now. I have a farm. I have all these animals to look after. But to this day, she still comes and cuts vegetables for me and makes sure that I have food in my fridge. She comes and helps me do dishes, to do the stuff that I I can't necessarily get done on a daily basis. And I'm so blessed to have her. I don't know what I would do without my mother. And so I've actually been really lucky to have a lot of amazing people in my support system. I have a job now at the local store, and my bosses, even though they say we can't tell you have a brain injury, Keltie, we don't see it, they still support it. They know that it's there, and they're just absolutely amazing. I feel very blessed to have so many people in my corner. It has been very hard to lose a lot of people out of my life. And there's been times where I have said, and like, honestly, I wish that I had a big scar across my face, because then people would look at me and go, oh, you're not okay. But right now, nothing on the outside has changed. And so they look at me and they see the old me and they go, oh, you're fine. You look fine. I can't tell you how many people in my family have said, you look fine, or you look really good, and really don't understand that it's on a deeper level than that. And just because I look good doesn't mean that I'm functioning as well as I used to. And so losing those family members has been really difficult and a little bit heartbreaking that they just don't understand. So that just reminds me, I totally forgot a whole part of this story. So a year after this happened, I finally got in to see a brain specialist. I cried the whole time I was in there. They then said, we want to put you on medication because it's going to help your headaches and your light sensitivity. I didn't think about it. I started taking the medication. Found out later that the report they'd given to the doctor said that they gave me this because I was extremely depressed. But then I went in to take the testing that they do. And so I did the testing, and they came back and said, there's nothing wrong with you, and gave the doctor this report that said, Keltie doesn't have post-concussion. She's extremely depressed. She has extreme anxiety, which is not me. I'm not a depressed person. I do have anxiety sometimes from the concussion, but I know what that is. That's why I ended up losing my job. I lost my long-term disability. But even after that, I went to a psychologist, and the psychologist said, yes, she does in fact have post-concussion. And so there was all these mixed messages. I've gone to other people that have, said, in fact, yes, you do have post-concussion. But these people at the hospital they weren't kind to me. I didn't think that they understood me. During the test, I'd get really frustrated, but I didn't vocalize my frustration with them. So they didn't see it. When I left there, I had a headache and I had to sleep for 8 days afterwards, but they didn't see that part of it. They just saw that I came and did this 4-hour test and scored average on this test. Therefore, there's nothing wrong with me. But I went to see a most amazing neurologist from Lethbridge. Okay. And he did testing on me after that and said, I'm sorry that you went through that. You do have post-concussion. Here's some guidelines to live by, and just be easy on yourself. And, if you need anything, come back to me. And so I've been back to see him since, and he said, you're doing good. Just keep living within your limits. There's not much else we can do for you at this point in time. But he did say to me, if I hit my head one more time, I'll either be dead or in diapers. I can't snowboard anymore. Lots of things that I used to love doing, rollerblading, like wakeboarding, all that kind of stuff. Anything that has any, chance of hitting my head. I've since chosen to ride horses, but I've bought myself like a 28-year-old horse that has no buck in it. Every time I get on the horse, I do it knowing that if I hit my head, I might die. But it's a passion of mine. And otherwise, what do I have in life? Because I don't have the stuff that I used to. Yeah. So
you have adapted and come a really long way. Like the farm, the job, that you're married, you're happy,
Yes.
Right? Like that's, and I can see that when I talk to you too, and that's so wonderful.
Yes.
And I love hearing that.
There
Being,
still are moments,
oh yes.
where I just crumble, and I miss the old me so much. Like,
Yeah.
I really have adapted, but I'll never be that same person that I was. And so my life is great and I'm very happy, but there are definitely moments where I mourn the old me. I miss her so much. I think subconsciously, like, I was living in my mom's basement. I met my husband. We bought 10 acres and 5 dogs, 3 cats, 5 horses, 2 miniature horses, 2 goats, 2 donkeys, and like 40 chickens. I think that I subconsciously set it up so that I have an excuse not to go do things. I can't drive to see you. I have to look after my animals. I can't stay out past 8 o'clock. I have to look after my animals. And I
Right.
think about it now, and I do think I subconsciously did that so that I had an excuse. Not that I needed one, but so that I did, to be home.
Yeah. But it also, so on the flip side, if I'm playing devil's advocate, pro you, you've also found something that you
Yes.
can do successfully that brings you joy.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So, yes, maybe, but the flip side of that is it's giving you so many wonderful things as well, and you can't forget that. So if there was one thing that you know today that you wish you had known in those first 3 to 6 months, what would that be?
Boy, that's a hard question to bring it down to just one thing.
Or
One of the biggest things is that when you have a concussion, the majority of the time, your stomach will follow. So one of the things that I would have said to myself back then is make sure that you're eating, make sure that you're getting your probiotics, make sure that you're getting your brain healthy food, your omegas, your blueberries, your fibers. Do as much food wise as you possibly can to help yourself out. I think that that's really important, and nobody ever told me that. And then I would also tell, to be easy. Like, nobody ever said that this is going to be a long journey for you, and you just need to go be really easy on yourself, be very understanding of yourself. And then, I don't know if this goes into, at that point in time, but something that I think for the first 3 years, I was trying to find that person that I was. And I wish that earlier on somebody would have said, have a funeral for her, have a ceremony for that person, and say goodbye, and reinvent yourself. Become something new. Find something else you're passionate about. Don't chase the person you were. Become somebody new, better, different. I don't know if this is making any sense, but, find something that you can now do. And you just need to learn to love yourself where you are.
if you could leave someone who's struggling with where they are in post-concussion syndrome right now, what's something positive you could leave them with?
I think that the best thing is to be patient with yourself. Be really kind to yourself, because just because you're different doesn't mean you're any less worthy. It doesn't mean that you're not a magnificent, bright light in this world still. And I think to have that patience with yourself, the love that you would give the most innocent of children or animals, is something that we really need at this time. And also, don't force yourself to do more than you can, even though you used to be able to. Just do your best to learn to accept where you are, and don't force things. Learn new skills, learn something else, find a new passion, and just dive into it and love yourself where you are. Find your tribe. Find people that have been through it. Find people that understand you.